Because it's going to be, if it's clean, it brings the fluid out.
Okay, we're a few minutes late, but we'll sit here and listen to the motorcycle start up there, right out there. Are you in charge of all those motorcycles?
Busted.
Good morning, everyone. This is meeting number, can't find it, 554 of the Lake George Park Commission. And we always say welcome and introduction from the chairman. And the introduction that we need to make is our friend John McDonald, former park commissioner himself, here to monitor our activities, I think. He's now resettled back into his home grounds. Essex County is back to normal. So we're glad to see you. Approval of meeting minutes and fiscal actions report. Let's do the approval of meeting minutes for March 2026 first.
So moved.
Motion's made.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
I will abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay, one abstention. All in favor?
Two abstentions.
Two abstentions. Hearing no nays. It's carried. Approval of fiscal actions report March and April 2026.
So moved.
Second?
Motion's made. Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays. Carried. Item 3, project review actions report. Vice Chairman Joe Stanek.
Right. Resolution ending 2026-15, accept the project review action report. Whereas the Commission had received and reviewed the project review action report prepared by staff and dated 5/19/2026, and whereas the project review committee recommends acceptance of the project review action report. Now therefore, it be resolved that the Commission directs that the project review action report be incorporated in the minutes of the full Commission meeting. So moved. Second.
Motion made. Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? I hear no nays. Item 4, funding approval for porous pavement maintenance resolution 2026-16. Who's on board for that? Say,
You want to read it? I'll read it, but
I can provide an overview. So, if you'll recall, last fall we had Tom Baird who helped design Beach Road porous pavement. He gave a presentation on maintenance of that surface. It's been in place for about 15 years. Despite routine maintenance, every once in a while, these types of services require sort of a deep cleaning. Last year, we authorized up to $10,000 to work with a local company. We got some quotes back that were a little higher than we anticipated from that company. And so just to provide us a little bit more latitude in working with municipalities and paying for these costs, this will be a new resolution that supersedes that old one. Same cost, up to $10,000 to help clean Beach Road as well as the Commission's porous pavement parking lot. We've been working with Jim Weebrum at Soil and Water, Tom Baird, and working with the local municipalities, the DPWs, to help get that work done. So sort of a redo from last year, which will give us a little bit more latitude to get the project done.
is this a special roadway?
this is Beach Road.
This would be Beach Road
Yeah,
porous
right.
pavement. Yeah.
But I mean, I think the point of keeping it clean and keeping up to date is it's not just like your average asphalt highway.
Right.
And a lot of work to do to keep it there, but it's so close to the lake, it is apparently doing its job. So you have a resolution, Joe?
Yep, Resolution 2026-16, funding approval for porous pavement cleaning project. Whereas the Lake George Park Commission recognizes the importance of groundbreaking Beach Road porous pavement project and its water quality protection benefit to Lake George. And whereas anticipated over the past 15 years, this porous pavement's capacity to infiltrate rainwater has slowly reduced due to tracking of silt, sediment, and organic debris, and it requires deep cleaning to regain its ability to infiltrate stormwater. And whereas the Commission is coordinating with Warren County Soil and Water Conservation District, local municipalities to provide a deep cleaning to restore porosity to Beach Road, and whereas the Warren County Soil and Water Conservation District has offered to partner in the cost of Beach Road cleaning, an effort to $4,000, Whereas in addition to the Beach Road project, the Lake George Park Commission porous pavement lot installed 4 years ago is also due for cleaning and will be added to the overall effort. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby authorizes the expenditure of up to $10,000 to assist the maintenance cleaning of Beach Road and the Lake George Park Commission parking lot, and authorize commission staff to execute any necessary agreements to ensure the completion of these projects. So moved.
Motion's made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? I hear no nays, so that's carried. Item 5, new patrol boat transport delivery resolution.
So this one, we were fortunate to receive from the Governor's Office and Division of Budget money through NYWorks, New York Works, which is money for capital projects. We had an old Marine Patrol vessel with over 8,000 hours on the hull. And so in 2024, we were able to go out to bid and receive a low bid for a life-proof aluminum-hulled vessel, which is supposed to be stronger and last longer. It's actually a little less expensive than a typical whaler, which we use. That was being manufactured actually right now in Washington State. When we went out to bid, we purposely omitted delivery costs, hoping to kind of give ourselves a little bit more leeway and look for low-cost estimates. So we're kind of at that point where that boat will be ready probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So this resolution allows staff to spend up to $10,000 to have that vessel delivered from Washington State to Lake George for use in this boating season.
Resolution.
Resolution 2026-17, approval for funding transport of the new patrol vessel. Whereas the Lake George Park Commission secured funding from New York Works program and authorized the replacement of a 2009 Marine Patrol boat with a new 25-foot aluminum-hulled patrol vessel. And whereas the Commission undertook a formal invitation for bids for construction of the vessel, and the lowest responsive bid was awarded to Life Group Boats in Washington State, and the invitation for bid purposely excluded the service and cost of vessel delivery so as to afford maximum flexibility and cost effectiveness in transporting the vessel. And whereas the Commission is seeking estimates for evaluating cost of vessel delivery from the manufacturer's location in Washington State to Lake George, and whereas the vessel construction is anticipated to be completed in the next 4 to 6 weeks, and it's in the Commission's interest to arrange for timely and cost-effective transport so the vessel may be put into service, and now therefore be resolved that the Commission hereby authorize the expenditure of up to $10,000 for transport of the Life Group Marine Patrol vessel to Lake George, and authorize the Commission staff to execute any necessary agreements needed to secure delivery of the vessel to Lake George. So moved.
Second.
Motion's made, motion second. Any discussion? All in favor? Hearing no nays, it's carried. Item 7 might be what we came here for today. Septic. This is the one body in the area that just enjoys talking about septic. As you all know, we created...
We missed 6.
I missed 6?
Yeah.
Oh, the fuel resolution. I'm sorry. Let's jump back to that. Funding approval for Marine Patrol Fuel Resolution 2026-18. You got one of those, Joe?
I do. So this little background, the state contract in Warren County for fuel does not include 91 octane non-ethanol fuel, which is necessary for Marine Patrol vessels. Gas prices are not great right now, and so we get our best value by purchasing that in bulk. And so this is just a resolution to spend up to $50,000, get quotes, and get the best available price for that fuel to support Marine Patrol efforts on the lake.
Resolution 2026-18, approve funding for Marine Patrol fuel purchase. Whereas the mission of the Lake George Park Commission requires the continued operation of the Marine Patrol, and its 91 octane non-ethanol gas is essential of the equipment to maintain the operation of the patrol at its present level. And whereas the 91 octane non-ethanol fuel required for Marine Patrol vessels is not available on state contract, and whereas the Commission can purchase the fuel at a rate less than the market value and dispense the gas at the DEC facility at Green Island for the use of Marine Patrol, now therefore be resolved that the commission hereby authorizes the expenditure of up to $50,000 for the purchase of 91-octane non-ethanol gasoline for the 2026 season. Be it further resolved that the commission staff is authorized to execute a purchase order to said gasoline consistent with the findings and requirements of the state financing law and Office of Standard and Purchase of the Office of General Services Procurement Guidelines. So moved.
Motion's made.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I hear no nays, so it's carried. You'll all notice that this group here does not allow the chair to deviate or miss anything. Act accordingly, I think it's called. Now we're going to talk about septic. As you're all aware, the Park Commission passed the septic system, residential and commercial, a couple of years back, and that resulted in a more than intimate knowledge of where we knew where septic came from, but we weren't always sure where it was going to. And very candidly, that's a problem in this area as to how to dispose of it properly and legally, et cetera, et cetera. So the Park Commission retained Sean Doty's firm, and they're here this morning to, do we have a presentation or oral?
We do, yeah.
What? We're ready for you.
We can start.
Yes, thank you.
It's a guarantee, Sean.
Yes. Okay. Justin, I don't have to hold the mic, right? We can just take it. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for welcoming us in. Sorry. Sean Doty, Swazo Doty and Associates, Matt Fuller, Meyer Fuller at Stockwell, Kathy Swazo from my office is here, and Catherine Hughes is as well. Oh, yeah. She's passing out hard copies of the presentation. As the chairman mentioned, the commission hired us last year to get a sense of the total septic demand in the basin and the ability to treat it. Right? That was the overarching goal of the report that we've written. And to be able to pull that report together, the first thing we did was make site visits to the three main wastewater treatment plants that treat septic. Those are the Village of Lake George, City of Glens Falls, Town of Ticonderoga. Within the basin, the town of Bolton and the town of Hague also have wastewater treatment plants, but they do not treat septic at those locations. Historically, the Washington County Sewer District, which is located in Fort Edward, also treated septic, but they stopped sometime in 2018, I believe, for various reasons at that location. So the three main plants that treat septic in the basin are Lake George, Ticonderoga, and the City of Glens Falls. And so as part of the report, we analyzed what are called DMRs, discharge monitoring reports, 3 years worth of that data. That really can tell you about the performance of the plant and potential influences from septic. And so we'll get into that data a little bit later. And then we interviewed anybody, of course, how the plants are operating of the whole. And Tim Schutt's with us today, George, and so, looking at the potential demand, treatment capacity, or in some cases lack thereof, we also looked at what are the physical improvements that could be made at each one of these plants to support further treatment. And Matt is here with us too, of course, and was part of all of the elements of this report, but especially forming the legal framework context about potential improvements and what that means and how munis can do that, right, essentially. First, what is septic? I think everybody understands it generally, but this is more to show you some of the sampling that Tim Schutt at Lake George has done recently as it compares to some of the averages of septage. Septage obviously is anything that's pulled from a septic tank or a holding tank. Not industrial waste, but generally commercial, institutional, and residential. Highly variable depending on how long it's been in that tank, what's coming to it, whether you have a garbage disposal or some people have water softeners. It can be very dynamic what's in that tank. The EPA, for example, shows their average over the long term, that BOD, which is biochemical oxygen demand, of about 6,500 milligrams per liter. Tim and his staff conducted about 20 samples over the last year or so, and their average is closer to 1,800. There's some spikes that are up around 3,000, maybe 3,800, and then one as low as, I think, 20 we saw. That we think was influenced by groundwater. But that gives you a sense of some of the strength that we're seeing here versus what the EPA says. And then, just for comparison's sake, domestic wastewater, normal municipal wastewater coming into a plant might have a BOD around 200 or so. So arguably what we found recently is 10 times the strength of regular municipal wastewater, which is why it's difficult to treat, right? Okay, so ascertaining septage demand in the Lake George Basin. Obviously, there's not a great data set in terms of wastewater treatment plant information or hauler information that is limited to the boundary of the watershed of the Park Commission jurisdiction. The best data for this is really the Park Commission's own data. There's 6,000 systems within the basin. 98% about are single-family residents. 2.5% are PCI, which are private, commercial, and institutional facilities. In the first 3 years of inspections that the Park Commission conducted, the average tank size is 1,260 gallons. So that means at any given day within the basin, there's around 7.6 million gallons of septage in tanks out there. The DOH recommends pumping out your septic tank every 2 to 3 years. We have a 5-year inspection cycle. That's not supposed to be maintenance as part of the Park Commission, right? That's inspection. Regular maintenance, good maintenance of your septic system, pumping out every 2 to 3 years. So if everybody was pumping out every 3 years, which we know they're not, that would mean the septage demand within the basin might be 2.5 million gallons annually. Doesn't account for holding tanks, doesn't account for, we call it routine in here, but if you're getting multiple pump out a year in your septic system, that probably suggests there's a problem there. Or emergency pump out. So obviously it'd be higher than this. And in the first 3 years of Park Commission inspections, the total septage removed was about 1 million gallons. So arguably that's 333,000 gallons a year of septage due to the inspection program. That doesn't account for that normal DOH recommended removal. If you were to do that, you could argue that amount's really a third less than that, maybe 222,000 gallons due to the Park Commission inspection program. And the point of saying this is just to show that the inspection program isn't the cause of septage challenges for treatment out in the basin universe, right? And I should say, anybody that wants to ask questions at any time, please go for it. Try to keep the presentation relatively short, but it's hard to with all the information that we have. So probably better for you to raise your hand as we go. Okay, so 4 haulers we interviewed. We collected 3 years of annual report data from 10 haulers, and so they're required every year to file an annual report with the DEC that tells the DEC how much septage they collected and the ultimate fate of it. Where did it go? And then we had detailed discussions with 4 of the haulers listed here to generally better understand the challenges that they're facing, what they're seeing in the septage hauling community and their experiences at wastewater treatment plants. Their biggest challenge is schedule. So in Ticonderoga, there are 3 main haulers that use that facility, and Ticonderoga does not turn people away. So they have more capacity than the demand that they're seeing right now. Lake George and Glens Falls are not in the same position. Lake George has what are called sequencing batch reactors, and so it treats wastewater in batches, and only so much septage can be accepted in each batch. And so what that means for them is that they're on a schedule so that not any one batch is overloaded. And in Glens Falls, they have a different challenge there. Theirs is related to the final sludge in their wastewater treatment that has to be removed. If they take too much septage too quickly, they won't be able to ultimately dry their sludge enough in order to dispose of it at their contracted location. It goes to an incinerator in Hudson Falls, the Wheelabrator facility. And so Glens Falls has a requirement that haulers have to discharge no more frequent than every 30 minutes, 30-minute delay. They just recently, in the fall of this past year, reduced that to 15 minutes. So we're waiting on that data, which would be good data to see, determining how much septage they can take in a day on those intervals. And so that schedule is difficult for haulers. That's the number one complaint, is that they have to be very careful how they stage and do their inspections to ensure that they have a place to bring septage when they're done, right, and get to the next appointment. And then, if they have emergency work, that's a challenge too, because they're scheduled for certain times. And their concern, of course, is increasing septage disposal rates. More and more municipalities are recognizing how expensive it is to treat septage, and so rates have been rising in recent history. And so from a hauler standpoint, that's obviously a cost, and they have to find a way to pass that cost on to customers, of course, right? And they're worried, one of the worries that they conveyed is, hey, if it gets too costly, people might wait and do damage to their septic systems, right? That's one of their concerns. Okay, so as I mentioned, we visited Lake George, Ticonderoga, and the city of Glens Falls to get a better appreciation for how their system worked, design capacities, discuss with the operators what they're seeing. And in the village of Lake George, generally the average septage acceptance volume is around 20,000 gallons a day. A little less than that, about 17,000 over 24 and 25. If you take 20,000 gallons a day, 6 days a week, which is when Lake George is open, you could treat up to 7.3 million gallons in a year. And during what we call the peak season, which is May through October for septage pump outs, the total treatment capacity is around 3.65 million gallons. There are some days in their peak season where they take much more than 20,000 gallons. It's because they have skillful operators. I'm not saying that because Tim is here. There are also, some of that volume is obviously holding tank volume. There's a known customer that has holding tanks that's in 2 or 3 times a day. The plant was initially designed for 14,000 gallons a day for septage acceptance, but that was at full capacity for the plant of 1.75 million gallons a day. And the plant is, in the summer, sees about 1 million gallons a day or so. So there's what's called organic capacity. There's a lot more treatment capacity available because they're not having the full organic capacity used by domestic wastewater. And again, as I discussed before, the limiting factors for Lake George are that scheduling system, right? So they can't really take, or they've been trying not to take more than about 10,000 gallons per SBR cycle, so as not to overload any one cycle of the SBR. The current price there is 11 cents per gallon. This data, these cool charts, at least cool for engineers, on the side of the slide here, just shows the efficiency of treatment, the flows that they're seeing, the septage volumes. And so in review, this is a 1,000-foot, overview. Generally, they're not having upset by the way the plant is running. You can see this plant came online in early 2022. I think this thing has a laser pointer on it. Let me see. Nope, I'm going to shut everything down. Perfect. Let's see if I can get that back. There we go. Does it have a laser pointer on it? Yes, it does. Here we go. Is that it? Yeah. Okay. So right here, this is TSS, this is BOD. You can see some of those elevated levels early in the plant coming online. There's something called a break-in period for wastewater treatment plants where it comes up to treatment ability. And so typically that's on the order of 6 months or so, and that's right about where Lake George was. Got it through the break-in period and then treatment performed very well over that period, even under this significant year of a lot more septage in that first year, 4.77 million. There's some upset during that time, but the operators skillfully figured out the sweet spot to ensure treatment. Yes? Want me to go back?
The upper graph, I'm sorry, my eyes are going bad. So
That's
those
okay.
Are millions of gallons, the upper graph, millions of gallons?
This is-
average a month?
Yeah, this is normal wastewater flow overall and septage together, just the DMR flow up top, and then this is septage received. And so we wanted to make sure that you could see that the plant, most people know that obviously Lake George is a tourist economy and the flows go up in the summer, right? But we wanted to show the influence that any effluent characteristics were also influenced by the increase in daily flow just from wastewater, domestic wastewater tip.
So this is number, I'm looking July 22. Is
Yep.
that 4
July of 22. I have to get closer to
million
the-
gallons of
No, so July of 22 for septage or overall flow?
overall flow, green is overall flow, right?
You know, I'm glad you're asking this question because this graph does look like there's some error in it. I don't know why that says 4 million, because they're not putting 4 million through that
Yeah.
plant. Yeah.
Okay.
Good question. No, we'll have to revise this chart and let you know.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Okay. Wait a minute. So the next one, just to answer your question, Chris, City of Glens Falls, septage received million gallons, January 23. Yeah, this one has that, whatever that same error is carried through these charts. But we'll jump to City of Glens Falls. So, City of Glens Falls, similar issue as we talked about in terms of scheduling, different reason. Glens Falls is what's called the CSO community, combined sewer overflow. So it also has stormwater pipes that convey storm through the sanitary sewer as well. And so they have certain restrictions on when they can collect. They have a certain flow in which they stop septage receiving so as not to have septage go out into the Hudson River, right? They are a much bigger plant and over the last couple of years have been between 6.5 to 7 million gallons a year in septage acceptance. Again, they have a 30-minute discharge interval waiting time between haulers, and sometimes those haulers can stack up, as you can imagine. It takes 10 or 15 minutes for a hauler to discharge. So if you have 2 or 3 haulers in a row, you can imagine the wait you might have if you're the 4th hauler to pull in, right? The reason they instituted a 30-minute discharge interval was because in 2022, as late as 2022, they had essentially an unlimited amount of septage acceptance where they'd let haulers come in and dump. Well, they had an 8-hour period in 22 where almost 100,000 gallons of septage was discharged to the wastewater treatment plant at once. It turned the entire plant septic. It took them 3 months to recover. They didn't have, luckily, any permit violations during the period, but it told them, hey, we can't allow this. We gotta break this up. They were also struggling with their contract requirements with disposal of their biosolids. So in Glens Falls, what happens is the ultimate fate of sludge, which is the material that's at the bottom of a tank, a wastewater tank, is thickened, put through a belt press, which literally squeezes water out of it, right? And for Glens Falls, they have to make sure that that's 20% solids before it goes to the incinerator at Wheelabrator. If it's not 20% solids, it can be rejected and sent back, right? So in order for them to ensure their solids content is high enough, they have to keep the solids content within their wastewater tanks low, which is a bit counterintuitive. We think perhaps it has to do with young sludge. Younger sludge binds better than older sludge. And so you would think a higher solids content in a tank would lead to higher solids content in biosolids, but in this case it does not. So if they accept the septage too fast, the solids content within the wastewater tanks could be too high, and therefore they can't meet their solids content that's going to the incinerator. That's the Glens Falls problem. They've done a great job figuring it out. The 30-minute discharge intervals have worked except for hauler complaints and timing of delays. And so they've switched to this 15-minute interval. We don't quite have enough data yet to understand what that means in terms of how it's going and overall treatment capacity for a given day, but that's the Glens Falls situation. Ticonderoga, again, they are a CSO community too. Combined sewer, stormwater influences during wet weather operations, they can only accept 12,000 gallons a day. Under dry weather conditions, they can accept 30. Their average acceptance per day is about 7,500 gallons. They have 3 haulers that generally use them. They don't often find themselves, if at all, in the position of turning people away. Their greatest challenge currently is ensuring compliance with their phosphorus limit of 1.0 milligrams per liter that's discharged from the wastewater treatment plant to the Lachute River. And so they're focused on improvements to the plant to ensure that rather than any increases for septic capacity because they're not turning people away this time. Another treatment plant that has come up in the discussions with operators and haulers is the Saratoga County Sewer District wastewater treatment plant. They have a treatment acceptance station in Milton, shown on a tiny dot right here. Their plant is down in Mechanicville, down here. And so we understand that when capacity doesn't exist or out of preference, sometimes haulers will use Saratoga County Sewer District's Milton pump station, which is where their septic receiving is, or there's a hauler in this geography that just goes to Albany as well, because they find that Albany's easier, no scheduling impacts. They'll drive down the Northway and come back and continue removal of septic. Saratoga County Sewer District is currently its design capacity for overall wastewater treatment is 22 million gallons per day. They're collecting, on the order of 1 million gallons per month in septage, so very dilute compared to what's being collected and discharged up here. So they don't face a lot of problems with septage treatment. By their own code, however, they're not supposed to accept, or it's prohibited for having out-of-county wastewater or septage being delivered to them. But as you can imagine, being on the interface of Glens Falls, South Glens Falls, Saratoga County line, there are haulers that operate in both geographies. So maybe no one's bringing septage down there that didn't originate outside the county. Who knows? Okay, so future capacity. In Lake George, they're currently contemplating a couple different improvement options. Really 3. One is there's a equalization tank that exists from the previous version of the wastewater treatment plant that could be converted to treat septage. And then most recently, they've been looking at converting what are called their secondary clarifiers. That's this white building you see right here. Their septage receiving facility is in this building. Hauler hooks up, discharges septage through here. It goes through a screen, and then right now it is pumped to the head of the wastewater treatment plant. Here, the flow would be intercepted, brought through 2 grit removal manholes, and then into equalization and a primary treatment tank. So the idea is to remove the grit and remove some of that BOD load. If it's coming in at 2,000 milligrams per liter, if the term is sweeten it for 24 hours in one of these tanks, we can remove about 1,000 milligrams per liter in 24 hours before it goes to the SBRs. So with this potential improvement project, it's thought that the septage acceptance could double, go from about 21,000 up to 42,000 gallons a day. To give a better appreciation for the impact of septage on any SBR cycle, while it might represent a few percent of the hydraulic load, it can represent up to 40% of the organic load, the treatment need. And so that's how potent septage is compared to regular wastewater. There's two different options being floated that are similar. One of them doesn't include grit manholes out front. It's a more proprietary facility in a bigger building. And so those two options range from $3 to $4 million. Currently, starting June 1st, I think, right, Tim? The village is going to pilot attempting to take more septage in each SBR cycle because they do believe they have organic capacity to do so, starting with going from 10 to perhaps 15,000 in each cycle, to see how that goes, to see if they can respond to the demands of the hauler community without having to do an improvement, right? So more news in the fall about that, I think, right? Another thing that may affect the capacity of septage acceptance over time in the Lake George wastewater treatment plant is this potential for sewer district extension from the village line, which is right here, up to as far as Cannon Point. That's currently being evaluated by the town of Lake George. That would be almost 600 properties, about 300,000 gallons of additional wastewater flow to the wastewater treatment plant. Now, if the summertime flows are 1 million gallons per day, with this being added, it might be 1.3 million, so there's still capacity up to the village's 1.75 design capacity, 1.75 MGD. That will, obviously, it's more organic load, so some of the septage capacity under current conditions could be reduced, but it's just too hard to tell exactly what that is until it would require further study. But this is being contemplated. A district's not formed yet. It's still in preliminary presentation, public engagement stage right now. Okay, future capacity for the city of Glens Falls. As we said, for tithe, no improvements are being advanced at this time for septage. Improvements, they're focused on making sure that they stay in compliance with their 1.0 milligrams per liter for phosphorus. Glens Falls is considering a sludge dryer, and so their sludge dryer project is on the order of $20 million. What that sludge dryer does is, just like the name says, dry out that sludge. When we were talking about 20% solids content in the biosolids, the dryer could increase it to as much as 60 or even more % solids, which means now you've tripled your capacity to dispose of that biosolids at the same location. However, before they get to that project, they have a $20 or $25 million electrical upgrade that is required of the treatment plant, not for the sludge dryer, just for the plant overall. And so they're $40 to $45 million away from having a sludge dryer. Biosolids. Biosolids is you might say, a pretty sizable X factor in the discussion of septage receiving and wastewater treatment overall. Everybody in the room's heard of PFAS, right? And so most recently, the DEC has begun sampling of both biosolids and effluent in certain plants to get a sense of the concentration of PFAS in biosolids and in effluent. And so there are draft guidelines that have been issued by the department and what's called a TOGS, Technical and Operation Guidance Series, for wastewater treatment plants when it comes to PFAS and 1,4-dioxane too. For land application, currently, if you're under 20 parts per billion in sludge, there's no restriction on placing biosolids on land, meaning a farm field or composting and then a farm or wherever that might go. Between 20 and 50, the current guidance is, okay, if you're under 50 or between 20 and 50, we'll test again on a certain frequency, just to see where this is going, right? And if you're over 50, you can't put it on land at all. And so these draft regulations are starting to hit the wastewater community and land appliers, especially.
Sean,
Yeah.
what's the status of the Albany trying to put a moratorium on this whole process?
Look at you. It's the next slide. So in 2025, in that legislative session, there was a bill proposed to put a 5-year moratorium on the land application of biosolids. So that is to say, we're going to stop putting on any land at this time until such time we figure out what to do with it, right? In 2018, the DEC's most recent study on where all biosolids went, or at least publicly available through their website, showed that 16% of biosolids were either land applied or composted. And so while that doesn't sound like a lot, most of this region ends up in either land application or in composting. So the Village of Lake George and the Washington County Sewer District both take their biosolids to a composting facility in Washington County. And then once it's composted, it is turned into mulch and goes wherever mulch goes, right? In Ticonderoga, there's a farm that is the receiver of biosolids at a species permit where all sludge is land applied. And so if those outlets go away, and there's many more like it, there's 93 as of 2015, as part of the 2018 DEC study, there was 93 wastewater treatment plants across the state that went to what's called a beneficial use determination, of which almost all in those buds end up land applied or composted. So here's almost 100 wastewater treatment plants with no outlet. So that gives you a sense of the potential challenge that the community will face. And then what happens to the price when you go to the landfill or the price when you go to the incinerator, right? If the demand goes up in those locations, so does the price. So that makes it very challenging.
Are they going to do tests at each site to see if the PFAs are present and be able to, sort of isolate those that have the PFAs versus not?
That's what they're in the process of doing. Yep. They're trying to get a sense of the concentration of PFAS in sludge at plants across the state. Yep.
When are they going to have that done? You know?
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I think Lake George has had it done. Is that right, Tim?
They were in process.
Yeah.
Washington County had it done.
Yep. And there's some plants where if they were up for Speedy's permit renewal over a certain size are now getting what's called a monitor only in their effluent. And so they're also testing the effluent. And the challenge, of course, at a wastewater treatment plant is you're not creating the PFAS, you're accepting it. And the treatment process doesn't add PFAS to the system. But like many other pollutants of concern over time, treatment plants are going to be forced to deal with it. And so mercury comes to mind, for example. There's minimization plans that wastewater treatment plants are required to enact as part of their species permit, where they go and track down where mercury might be coming into their system out in the wild, right? Out in the collection system. Lake George has a TDS, total dissolved solids, for the same thing, which is essentially the largest contributor is salts, right? And so the treatment plant's not in charge of how much road salt gets put on the ground, but yet they have a limit for the plant for how much can go through the plant. And so that's a challenge. That's an extreme challenge for a wastewater treatment plant, right?
So are they going to put some rules in place or guidelines to say, okay, if you can maintain this level, then you're okay? If you're not,
yes, that's what we anticipate based on the guidance they've issued so far. They follow the EPA as well, and I'm not certain exactly where the EPA is with their rulemaking, but that's forthcoming.
I checked that bill this morning, and it had not advanced as fast as it did last year. But as we all know, we're coming into the sausage making season and all that, and who knows what happens at the end of session.
Yeah, so the big concern, of course, is with tighter restrictions, the price is going to go up. That's going to force septage prices to go up, right, for acceptance, because septage creates more biosolids than wastewater does on a pro rata basis. But septage could also help you offset some of those costs if you balance it right. And so potential biosolids regulation, especially the moratorium, is of great concern.
Yeah, so one of the aspects of undertaking this project was to figure out for municipalities what they can do. And a good example we had was the Dunham's Bay septage district that's over on Dunham's Bay here in the Southern Basin, right? And, you know, kind of relating that to the study of septage receiving capacity. When you form a district like that, which is allowed, you know, so municipalities can form septage receiving districts, septage maintenance districts. One of the things that you've got to take a look at that I think was even assumed in that MPR is where is the septage going to go, right? Because from a legal capacity, all the things that Sean was just talking about, a municipality that owns a wastewater treatment plant, Lake George, Ticonderoga, Glens Falls, Washington County, their ability to accept septage is on an excess capacity basis, right? So if you boil it down into legal terms, which is where I end up on the speedies permits and things like that, when Tim and his crew are evaluating how much septage they can accept, really what they're evaluating is how much excess capacity do we have, right? And that can change day to day, month to month, seasonally, with flows and things like that. So again, going back to the formation of these districts, one of the things that I think was assumed in the formation of that district was, well, we're just going to have a place to dispose of this excess capacity, or our septage, right? When we pump out a tank, we're going to have a place to take it. But as we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, and you know, as speedies permits get ratcheted down every 5 years or 10 years when they're issued, you know, the operators are paying more and more close attention to the plant and compliance. And as Sean was saying, this waste is such high strength waste that it impacts the ability of a plant to treat. The overall analysis is, I think going forward as municipalities look at forming districts like this, they're going to have to take a look at the outlet, right? And I think you're going to need in your map planning report, your formation documents, you're probably going to need to have negotiated with one of these plants for an intermunicipal agreement, an IMA, so that you've got a dedicated receiving station, right? If a municipality commits to providing a service, it has to provide that service. And not having an outlet for where that septage is going to go, I think, again, even when that district was formed 10 years ago, it was just assumed. That's not a criticism of the formation of that district at all. Septage discharge, septage receiving was assumed. It's only been the last handful of years that, you know, these issues have come to light, and capacity has become, you know, a concern on a treatment basis. So, you know, that's the formation of the district process. I have the documents. We put them in the appendix to the report there. You know, I think more and more, you know, not only within the Lake George Basin, but even, you know, from a project by project basis, not in the basin, planning boards and things like that, even from a seeker standpoint, you know, environmental quality review, are probably going to have to start taking a harder look at, you know, you get a 30, 40, 50 unit development that's going to be on septic. Where's that septic going to go? You know, one of the things that we can, you know, do with a study like this is kind of start extrapolating out into a county-wide basis. Washington County, Warren County, Essex County did some preliminary work a couple of years ago. You know, what is the overall septage capacity in our region? You know, Bolton doesn't take septage, Hague doesn't take septage. You know, that capacity creep with, you know, extensions of districts and things like that is something that, you know, I think every municipality's got to pay attention to going forward. Where do we hit next there?
The right one.
Yeah, so this is just a discussion again about the excess capacity and the need to treat and dispose of your septage when you form a district like this. So from a municipality standpoint, you know, all of the municipalities that were on that list I work with that have wastewater treatment plants, from our side of it, I say the ownership side of it, you know, we would be looking at capacity purchases, right? We're not going to give away our primary obligation, if you think about it, from a wastewater treatment facility standpoint and ownership, is to the people that are connected, right? Not septic systems. That is an elective source of revenue, but as you know, Sean was pointing out, with the strength of this waste, it also comes with a cost. So, you know, negotiating purchases of capacity, cost of O&M, That was the interesting drill down again, I think, that we've seen over the last 5-10 years, is actually calculating how much it costs to treat septic. Because since it's such high strength waste and it requires a dedication of time, sequencing when you introduce it into your plant, it actually is a bit of a higher cost to treat septic. And I think you're starting to see that with the septic rates coming up. They were 4, 5, 6, 7 cents a gallon even within the last 3 or 4 years, and they've started creeping up as operators figure out how much it costs to actually treat this stuff. So that's going to be part of those intermunicipal agreements when you form districts and commit to acceptance of that capacity, how that capacity is going to be charged, and then costs. These projects, from a municipal standpoint, again, I'm looking at the ownership standpoint. A lot of our projects for even Lake George wastewater treatment plant were funded through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, right? Big pools of money that the state and the feds operate for funding these projects. These septic receiving projects, they don't score very well. In fact, they don't really score at all. And again, the primary reason, if you go back to it from a policy standpoint, is the obligation, right? The funding, scoring, and all those mechanisms, they deal with who you're required to treat. That's the people that are connected to you, right? That's your primary obligation. Things like septic receiving improvements, they're elective. They're not required. We're not required to take septic, right? So from a village, city, town, I get your question just a second. When we're evaluating whether to do these septic receiving projects, it comes down to dollars and cents. You can't foist that cost onto your taxpayers because they're not the ones necessarily benefiting from it, right? They would be paying for it, essentially subsidizing the septic owners, right? People that are on septic tanks. If you're not at least covering your cost, then you're subsidizing it. And again, that's gone into that rate and what people are charging. They've started to see that our taxpayers are subsidizing. So, back to funding these projects. The SRF program, we put them, we had probably 3 or 4 we've done in the last few years. They don't score well.
It's the bottom gold bullet.
Yep.
Slide.
Money in order to do this. And that, again, comes back to, hopefully, the progressive, some people think that's a bad term, but municipalities that are paying attention to planning, that have a lot of septic systems, kind of watching this, right? And figuring out, hey, if our tax base is really based on properties that are serviced by septic systems, that septic has to have a place to go. Maybe we start looking at forming these septic districts so that we know our development has a place to go. You look at the struggles that North Creek has gone through to build a wastewater treatment plant, right? They have restaurants and things that are only open 2 or 3 days a week by DOH imposition because they have no place for septic, right? Their septic systems are failing. So, I think as you look at this globally, we deal with it every day, so we see it. It's right on our plate. But this topic, septic receiving, the biosolids disposal, for years we've kind of taken wastewater treatment for granted. Now that's coming home to roost. And I think, thank you to the Park Commission, first of all, for, funding and letting us off on this expedition. I think it was great to show the relation to the Park Commission's inspection program and the resulting correlation to capacity. Just good data all around.
Yeah.
So there seems to be a major disconnect here in terms of laws, because the law is you have to clean your septic system out, and yet the funding of sewage in a community where you're required. So why hasn't anybody gone back to these funding units, or they probably have, to say, look, there's a law that says they have to do this. So they must have figured that in. Obviously, a lot of people weren't doing what they were supposed to do, which is what we found out when we started to make it happen. So if that's it, is it regulatory? You go to your
That's a good question.
legislative people or what?
It is demand. There's an online every year. We're actually in the process of updating them right now. The New York State Environmental Facilities Corp, EFC, they're the main funder of these projects in New York. They come out with everything's acronym based, right? The IUP, the intended use plan. That's what they take to the feds every year. You file your projects, they take them for the entire state, and then they go ask the feds for money, right? If you really look at the total cost of the running IUP that gets updated every year, the the amount of money that's needed is astronomical. So to answer your question, I don't think that the ability to serve the demand for septic receiving has gotten high enough yet, meaning there's just not enough money, right? I have Lake George, Ty, Washington County, Glens Falls. Sean was talking about Glens Falls electric project, $20-25 million. Just getting that funded is so hard under the SRF programs, right? Because they might have $100 million or $200 million, $300 million in a year, but for the entire state, it's literally a drop in the bucket. So there's not enough money to make that a priority. But back to the district formation, if a municipality said, hey, this whole area of our town, our entire town, is serviced by septics, and we do this study, and now we're having a water quality issue, right? We can take the park commission's data and show, you know what, on average, probably this many systems in our municipality are failing or are underserviced. We take that data and we start to go to DEC and say, okay, now we think we have a water quality issue, right? Our water discharges to Champlain or discharges to the Hudson River watershed, whatever it may be. We can show, if you can fund us with our septic district, we'll go contract with this municipality that has a wastewater treatment plant. They need $4 million to fund improvements. We will buy capacity, we will buy that capacity, fund us, let us borrow the money to make those improvements through the SRF. Now you're starting to create your argument of how you can get your points higher, right? It's all about points in these scoring matrix. So, just not enough money.
Well, how did, you talked about the one that's supposed to go up to Cannon Point. I don't know if the numbers you gave here were gross numbers or net, but they're all supposedly using septic.
Yes.
So that'll go away, and
Yep.
then they'll involve. But then it creates the opportunity for development where the people couldn't develop more.
Oh, yeah.
before. So it's not just those 585 properties. So how did that one get approved? Or is it not
That
approved?
one's not approved yet. That's in concept. Yeah, it's being evaluated by the.
Is it listed yet?
It's on the IUP.
But it's in line with what you said,
It is-
create a district.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's potentially likely to score well because while the funding scoring matrices don't favor septic projects, there is a category for removing folks that are on failing systems and putting them on municipal sewer. So in a way, there's a proxy, but that is exceedingly difficult. It is very difficult these days to form a district because of the costs.
Yep.
People are
Vote. They go to vote.
Yeah, they go to vote. It's up to the people. People are very willing to spend $150 a month on their cell phone, but not for sewer. They just aren't. It's taken for granted, right? People take it for granted
Yep.
until your faucet doesn't come on and you don't have water and your toilet doesn't flush. People take for granted water and sewer.
And on the development front, if a district like that was to go forward, in an environmental quality review, a seeker standpoint, it's going to be critical for the town to take a look at the potential impact of that sewer line, right? So maybe you got to take a look at zoning and what your allowed densities are going to be, because you do immediately create that potential for that 300,000 gallons to be something more, right? If you can increase your units, because now you don't have to worry about sewer. That's a valid environmental question, right? I'm sure Chris will be right there at the table.
Chris, Chris will get you right after Joe.
Oh, sure, thank
I mentioned to you before about possibly changing the cost on the shoulder seasons to incent people to drop it off earlier. Do you think that might have any traction at all?
Yeah, so in our meeting, one of the discussions we had was trying to incentivize away from the seasonal impact of septic, right? Particularly the Lake George Basin as people come in for the summer, and to maybe offer a lower cost for off-season disposal. In the couple of weeks here, we have not been able to advance that discussion with the two plants, at least that I work with, but it is an interesting concept, right? Of offering a discount over the winter if you get your septic. If you look at our numbers, the bell curve's the other way. It's way low in the winter. There might be a move there to get people to get their septics taken care of over the winter.
What do you think about that, Tim? Offering a discounted rate in the shoulder season?
Thought of it or
Yeah.
possibly. My first thought is that it's still possible to same to treat it.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
If anything, you premium the summer.
Which is the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's more expensive in the summer and the same cost in the shoulder season. To try to encourage, Joe's point is to try to encourage some that could hold off to the shoulder seasons to do it then, right? To flatten those peaks. It might be worth piloting, right? We won't really know how the market reacts to it until you test it, right?
And get your neighbors to buy it.
Yeah. Chris and then Chris. Yeah. Go ahead, Chris. You got a question?
So, nice job, appreciate all the data on this. So, we know that there is restriction on sizing plants above your existing need in your district. I think it's 5%, right? You can't make a plant bigger anticipating growth or bringing it in, but is this a possibility to, if some municipality has to expand new plant, can they create a larger, capacity anticipating, or septage coming in?
Yeah.
To try to provide that, or does that get to where you're going, Matt, is that they need an IMA to size their plant bigger or something?
Yep, so in the village law and the town law, there are specific provisions for allowing on both the drinking water and the wastewater side, municipalities to fund additional capacity. So there is that's just a government, a local government side, right? There's also the DEC and the permitting side. But those require votes, right? So you got to take that to your taxpayers and say, hey, we want to fund X capacity in addition to our plant, and they've got to make the call. And that call, I think, in our experience anyway, would just come down to dollars and cents, right? What's our expected revenue versus our expected expense, right? And as you see with even the septage receiving costs, they're very fluid, right? If you're from a municipality, we talk about this at a lot of our meetings. If we're doing a cost-benefit analysis of whether or not to make septage improvements, we're assuming a rate, right? If we assume it's 11,000 or 11 cents right now, and that drops to 6, those numbers go sideways, right? Then the taxpayers are again subsidizing. That's the trash plant rule, right? The trash plant was built 30, 40 years ago. They said, we're going to get these tipping fees. That never happened. So the local taxpayers paid for it. But on the DEC side, that's where a study like this, I think, comes into that argument, right? To say, okay, because again, septage disposal has just been assumed for 50, 60, 100 years, right? It was just assumed that these plants would accept it. Well, when you ratchet down speedies permits and you got, phosphorus limits in Lake Champlain and no discharge limits in the Lake George Basin, right? You start to impact whether or not a plant can take septage. So now those things are quietly coming home to roost, right? And I think you throw biosolids on top of that, it's the old adage, death by 1,000 cuts, right? Each one of these things individually may not impact this discussion, but when you look at it collectively, it absolutely does. We have meetings every month, Tim, right? We're talking about all these things. Biosolids, the septic receiving, it's constantly on meeting agendas now.
Yeah, good. We won't forget about your question. Let's take it, then I have a thought.
One quick thing, back up or follow up to Kathy's point, and then maybe the Park Commission's role here. We could possibly change the regulations within the basin to increase septic tank sizes. A lot of these systems are seasonally operated. We get better digestion over the wintertime when people are not using the system. On the larger tank, we may limit the amount of septage that needs to be hauled when we do pump it out. And secondly, we could probably reduce the number of pump outs from every 5 years to just an inspection and pump out as necessary. So I think we could probably take some role here locally at the Park Commission level to help that situation. It's not going to solve the problem,
Right.
but it may help a little bit.
Any thoughts? Something to think about. One thought I had at the tail end of that conversation was, often with with treatment plants, you are building the treatment plant and you're assessing the debt retirement and O&M fees right away, right? And so those two things are matched, where those benefiting from it are paying right away. But it makes me think of a town-wide generic environmental impact statement. For those that are on septage, should they contribute, and it's almost district formation too, a septage district, should they contribute to the future capacity of a plant to ensure the septage treatment capacity is there, right? And should that be evaluated as part of seeker as a subdivision is being approved? You know, there's something to that construct to give thought to that might help fund at the local level improvements. It's, you know, and I reference this often. In the town of Malta, for example, they have a town-wide GEIS, generic environmental impact statement, that assesses development certain fees for impacts to the transportation network, for example. And so they know as they grow and traffic grows, they're going to have to replace a intersection that's stock controlled with signals or a roundabout, and that's going to cost a certain amount of money. And so incrementally, each one of those new developments pays into a fund, and the town constructs those improvements when the time comes. And so,
Many capital district communities have been more proactive that way than we have in the North Country.
Well, it's funny because we don't have it in Lake George right now, but I can tell you, Ticonderoga, Glens Falls, and Washington County, all three are looking at this right now, is the same environmental impact for dealing with combined sewer overflows. Where stormwater and sanitary are combined into one system. During storm and seasonal events, you end up with some issues, right? They discharge off to a river somewhere is what happens. And for just this reason, how to assess mitigation fees and things like that, seeker is the vehicle. Go through the entire process, assess those costs of basically separating. The whole goal of the combined sewer system is to separate it, but that's very expensive. And the existing users don't want to get saddled with that cost. It's new development, and DEC is, especially in Region 5, is keened in on this right now. Every project in the CSO community, we are getting these letters. They all have the same paragraph in them. So this topic is hitting right now for wastewater.
We've been working on it for 20 years.
I know.
Made as much progress.
You and I should have a conversation actually about it.
Chris? Sean, how is that different than an impact fee? When you just...
No, it is. That's what it is.
Impact fees are illegal.
Right.
But in an environmental impact statement capacity, they are not.
I think the term is payment in lieu of mitigation.
Nobody wants to ask for it.
And that, for everybody's knowledge, is being litigated right now in Washington County.
How does that attitude differ from a school district that charges the same tax to the people that don't have any children attending school?
Right. The reality is now, and Tom knows, for years I'd go to the Washington County Board of Supervisors meeting and the supervisor would say, well, I don't have wastewater treatment plant in my municipality. This doesn't impact me at all. Those days are over. If you have one house in your municipality that's on a septic system, you're invested now in wastewater treatment plant. Because as Sean said, over there they haven't taken septic since 2018 due to speedies permit issues. Right, discharging the Hudson, they can't meet the speedies permit and accept septic right now.
Right.
So if all these plants started to experience that, this issue would become very real very fast.
Maybe a matter of time for all of them.
Yeah, it's elective, and so the best way to comply is get rid of the high strength stuff first, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
We went well over our 10
Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done, thank you.
Well, that's probably the scariest report you're going to hear in a long time. Much more Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good job.
Coach, thank you. Thanks very much, guys.
I guess, the good news is the septic receiving exceeds the demand, right? So overall, it's good, and it's great that there's communities working to improve, how much can be received during the day as far as timing. So, I mean, big picture, the capacity is there, just being able to access it in a way where septic can be received at people's convenience.
Yep. Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Those peak days, take care of those peak days.
That's great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Wow. Okay. Back to another subject. Item number 8 on our agenda is to discuss a Class A marina proposal with a turbo application in the town of Hague. Is that you, Randy?
Thank you. So we have, it's a 2-for-1 here. This is a Class A marina with a new tour boat operation, as the chairman said. The Northern Lake George Boat Tours is going to propose a new tour boat to pick up at the Trout House Resort one time per day to start with and see how things go. At the same time, the Trout House does need to apply for a Class A marina to be able to do that, to allow them to pick up. Again, this is a tour boat itself is going to be berthed at their private residence, and so it's really just a pick up and drop off operation. We have received a couple of comments from the neighbors concerning the marina itself. I think the comments were more towards thinking it was a marina where there was going to be a lot more boat traffic and whatnot, but again, this is just a pick up and drop off. There were some concerns about restrooms. The facility is actually on the sewer district, or on the sewer, not a septic. So, and it's all going to be just motel guests that already have parking, a restroom, and also garbage facilities. And both Alice Patchett is here from the Trout House, and Amanda Bickerson from the tour boat. You guys want to step up to the mic and fill in anything that I left out? You're more than welcome to.
Hi, my name is Alice from the Trout House. So all we want to do is provide an opportunity for our guests in the summer to walk down to our main dock and have the opportunity to be on a tour boat of Northern Lake George. Very similar to what we have right now with Jim Wells, who picks up people at that same location and does a fishing boat tour with them. I guess I'm a little confused why all of a sudden we have to become a Class A marina when Jim has been doing this for years. And I think that word marina has caused our neighbors to be nervous and upset that maybe we're going to become another dockside marina. I don't really understand. I think they just don't get the idea that, I guess the Park Commission says now we have to be a Class A marina for Amanda to have her boat tour. Jim, probably it's only 5 or 6 times a year that our guests have gone on his fishing tour, fishing charter. The other thing I'd like to say is we probably average only 3.5 to 4 boats a week at Trout House. We have 3 docks, 2 of them I call the twin docks, and then our main dock, which mainly never gets used other than one family the second week of August that loves it because they do their cocktails at night, and so they're out there all the time. They do their, it's a big social thing. But other than that, our main dock is mainly a fishing pier for kids and anyone to throw their line in. And we have beautiful Adirondack chairs there, so it's not what people are thinking. In fact, I'd rather not be a Class A marina, but apparently you folks think I have to be.
Who's going to be the operator of the boat?
Who's going to be the operator?
So it's you folks that...
Yeah, me and Tom Bickerson.
Okay. So you're connected with Trout Village.
Yeah, we're teaming up with Trout House Village to get the marina application so that we can give rides to people up in the northern basin. There's nobody up in our end of the lake that does this, offers this. This end of the lake is beautiful, but the northern end is just as beautiful. And some of the people, like 90% of the people at Trout House don't get a chance to go on the lake at all. Dockside does rent right next door, but some people don't want to have the responsibility of renting a boat and going out, and they don't want to navigate the waters, they don't know where the rocks are and things like that. So my husband and I, Tom Vickerson and I, are trying to start this and offer this. And we're not going to have many pickups at the Trout House, as Alice had mentioned. I also work at the Hague Market. I chop salads. I'm the salad gal in the mornings, and I'm going to continue that because I love the Hague Market and they love my salads. So the calendar will evolve around what I have available, which I'm going to keep it minimal. And it won't start till the end of July because the boat is on the calendar to be inspected at the end of July. It's a pontoon boat that is 22 feet long, and the inspector will tell us how many, but we envision 6 guests. It's my label under my gear shift says we can have 10, but the inspector will tell us at the end of July when it gets inspected. So just to show people that are visiting in the area how beautiful the lake is, give them some history, let them know about different sites, Rogers Rock, Anthony's Nose. We won't go probably south of Hewlett's Landing. We'll do the Needle's Eye and then just stay up in the northern end of the lake. Teach them about the lake. I'm a lifelong summer resident. My grandparents built the house in the 50s. And we're truly still at camp in Hague and Friends Point, seasonal. Just got turned on the water this week. And how we still draw from the lake. Our house still takes water from the lake. We do not have a well or anything. And there's a lot of people that still do that. And teach these people that are on tours about the lake and how beautiful it is and everything that's there to share. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Randy, I'm still confused, which is not hard. You have a separate entity that's going to be picking up guests of the Trout House to take them out on a paid boat ride.
Correct.
So the separate entity has to be a PV, I would presume, right? And you already are that?
No, if we get approved here, then we'll be getting our boat inspected in July, because that's the earliest they can come. And then we'll get our certificate of inspection, and then we can become a public vessel then. I already have my pilot engineering license to take out paid customers. We're just waiting for the approval of this board and then our inspection to come out. And we teamed up with the Trout House because we said 90% of their guests don't have boats. And some of them don't want to rent a boat. So all we're going to do is once, maybe twice a week, we'll be picking up guests there. So it's like, we're just pick them up and leave. We're not keeping our boat there or anything. So, and the town of Hague said that they're fine with that. So we're just waiting for the permission. That's why we're kind of concerned. Like, well, the first time we put the permit in, they asked for an environmental impact statement, like that we were going to build a marina. It's like, no. We're just going to use an established resort. So.
I understand, but why are we?
Yeah, for clarity, on the regulatory front, tour boats need to be operated from a Class A marina, or they need a variance. In this case, the original application was intended to service the public, right? So the public, my dad comes up from Albany, stops at Stewart's for his coffee, arrives at Trout House, he needs a place to park, he needs a place to throw his coffee cup, and then he needs to use a restroom. So those are the requirements for a marina. Through the application process, the Padgetts indicated they just wanted their own guests to use the service and that there wouldn't be people from the outside, which made it simpler. But that requirement that they operate from a Class A marina still exists for the tour boat. So it's a concurrent application of establishing Trout House as a Class A marina, albeit the most minimal, approval, basically, as represented by this, and then the tour boat application, which needs a place of operation, that primary facility.
Okay.
Mrs. Patchett mentioned that other tour boat. We do allow tour boats to pick up at secondary facilities. So when someone calls and say, hey, where should I meet you? That's your primary location, right? You're going to park here and use the garbage in a restroom. But if there's another commercial facility where people might want to pick up every so often, like it sounds like that other charter does, we do allow that because commercial facilities generally already have those accommodations of parking, restrooms, and things like that. And it tends to be secondary and not a high-use type situation where you said it comes maybe 4 or 5 times a year, right? Nobody probably even notices that. But an operation on a daily basis or multiple trips a day, could have more impact, and that's why these regulations are in place.
Can I get a clarification as well? The boat won't be berthed there permanently? No, the boat will be berthed at our own residence. Okay. You're just picking people up? Just always picking up and dropping them off there.
It's almost a case of semantics. I do agree with your reservations about the word marina. If I was your next door neighbor, I'd come over and ask you, what's my future? But pretended marina means location, because you're not a marina. You're not a marina. We assert that even though we license you as a marina, we know you're not a marina. So I guess that's the dog we gotta.
So everyone immediately thinks 20 rentals and a gas pump and everything else. But the threshold for being a Class A marina is very low. Right? It's 2 seasonal boats or 1 tour boat, or and then everybody's classified the same way. So not uncommon for that to raise concerns.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments about this project? Do we have a resolution?
Right, application number M265003 and TB 26-5003. Applicant is Trout House Resort and Northern Lake George Boat Tours. Whereas the applicants have applied for a permit to operate a new tour boat and to create a new Class A marina to host the subject tour boat, and whereas the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the applications, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record, and whereas the Commission has made a determination that the project is an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act of 6 NY CRR 617.5, as lead agency for the purposes of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has made a determination that the project will have no significant impact on the environment, and whereas the action is considered to be a major project pursuant to 6 NY CRR 645-5.3, public notice has been published and distributed consistent with the regulations, and the applicant has demonstrated that the facility and activity comply with the Class A marina requirements of 6 NY CRR 646-1.2B and tour boat requirements at 646-1.4D. And whereas the Commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, will not have an undue visual, cultural, or audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved that Lake George Park Commission hereby approves the above application as proposed. So moved.
Motion's made.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion?
I wasn't at the site visit. What was the result of the site visit?
We visited. It's a very modern built dock, and it's excellent shape for being able to support this.
What do you feel the potential impact of the neighbor?
I don't think there's any impact whatsoever, just pulling up there.
Okay.
I mean, Kathy, you were there, right?
It's the perfect spot, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
We all agree? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, it's passed. You are whatever you want to call yourself, but you got it. Don't change your letterhead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 9, Class A Marina, Village of Lake George. Also,
This is me again, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. So This is a similar situation, but this time the applicant is actually going to have the tour boat at the facility, and they will be taking out motel guests only. It's the Lakes Edge LG LLC to operate out of the Lake Motel, applying for a Class A marina. The tour boat is actually already a licensed tour boat. They're just moving a single tour boat over to their dock. Again, it's the Adventure Boat Tours and Water Sports, and they'll be leaving a boat at their facility. And they are in a Zone 1A, as I mentioned in some of the notes. We did get some comments about additional boat traffic. This actually, he operated his tour boats prior to this, one in and one out of Zone A. So this will add an additional boat to that area. The carrying capacity, as listed in our 2025 rec study, it's still over capacity for that area, but in the boat count, there was 61 paddle craft and only 7 motorboats. And again, this will just be going in, or actually taking passengers, leaving and operating outside of the capacity zone, over capacity zone of 1A, and then coming back. And again, Stephen Purcelli is here to the applicant to fill in any holes that I may have, and we're welcome to make any comments.
Good morning.
Morning.
I think it's still morning.
Yeah, so if you have anything else, if I left anything out.
Okay, now, as I understand it, we do have a permit now to locate a boat there, which we've maintained through the years. We used to have a boat, and we used to give tours for our guests using that boat. We sold the boat many years ago, and we've kept the Class B license, I guess it is, in effect. And what we're looking to do now is to work with Tony DiCarlo from Adventure Boat Tours and Water Sports, which he already has a tour business. We would like to locate his boat at our dock to make it more convenient for our guests to take tours of the lake. We will not be accepting, we don't have enough parking anyways, even if we wanted to accept outsiders, but we certainly, and that's part of the contract with Tony, the only people who will be using that boat are current guests in the motel.
And this will be a PV vessel?
Yeah, it currently is, yeah.
Right. Anybody have any questions for the applicant? No. Anybody else? Thank you. Anybody else here to speak for the applicant? Or on the project, I mean? Mr. McDonald.
John McDonald, Lake George Steamboat Company. Just for the record, this is could be operating in Zone 1A and 1B, according to the notes, which are both exceeding capacity. So I just, and as someone who has navigated that area for years, the capacity has gotten very, very congested. So just for the record.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Can I?
Go. No, if you have a comment, go right ahead.
John, I appreciate what you just said. And every time we get a tour boat operator, I always revert back to, I'd rather have these people in a boat operated by somebody that knows what she is doing than renting a boat, because I'm on that lake and some of those boat renters are a little scary. So, but I do totally get it, and I've really taken Pat Dow's letter, you know, I've read it a couple of times, and she really has some good points there. But like you say, I always go back to the fact where, okay, we're putting 7-8 people in a boat, and now we don't have to worry about them renting. That's where I go on this.
I'm just saying for the rest of it.
Yeah, but I totally get it.
Did we have a site visit?
No, they decided not to go there because it was local motel guests only, and it's pretty straightforward. We've been there before.
Not going to be any real changes.
Not really any changes. And as Kathy said, it's better for them to have a tour boat than to rent boats and have multiple boats on the lake. So
And how many are they taking out a day?
Pardon?
How many trips a day were they planning? It seemed a little excessive.
I think it's only one.
Only one?
No, it was.
I thought it was 3 or 4. I thought that was
Previous-
a little excessive.
I think they, and I didn't put it in my notes, the previous tour boat that was already permitted, he had trips, I think, throughout the day, and he offers 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour tours. I don't think it's limited, but the hours of operation were limited.
So there was a previous permitted boat
Yeah.
doing the exact same thing we're talking about,
Yes.
which no longer exists by a course of a period of time, a few years. And this boat is replacing that.
This is a marina.
Yeah, so the existing tour boat has a max of 5 boat trips per day. So presently, shifting the location of operation from where it is now to this new marina, it would add up to 5 trips per day for that PV.
Gotcha. Potential for.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
One further comment. I presume that the tours in the past that were in a different location primarily go north, and in recognition of Mr. McDonald's comments, I think we want to make sure we don't linger in the area of the tour boats and in the South Basin. Are the tours going to largely be going north?
Yeah, there's going to be any room to go south.
I mean, you could certainly traverse the shoreline of the village, which would conflict with other
No, you're right, Tom.
non-motorized boats or with the tour boats. So I want to make sure that where the tours are going to be headed. We've had this problem arise in the last year.
So the existing permit that's in your packet says the general area of sightseeing tours is from the South Basin to Paradise Bay. And then if they do any water sports, they avoid any areas known to be over capacity in the rec studies.
Maybe I'm being redundant.
No.
I'm recognizing the concern we've heard about in the last year.
The tours will be going north.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We've already discussed it with Tony, who's the owner of Adventure Boat Tours. He's imposing a 2-hour minimum. We've got 41 rooms, so the likelihood of there being 5 tours on one day is pretty small.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly the path you take on a tour in October should be different than what you take in July or August. I would think.
Okay. Do we have a resolution?
Yep, resolution 2026-20, approve a Class A marina. Applicant number is M265004. Lake applicant is Lakes Edge LG LLC. The applicant has applied to operate a Class A marina to host an existing tour boat on Lake George. The Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record. And the commission has made a determination that the project is an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act of 6 NY CRR 617.5, and as lead agency for the purpose of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has made a determination that the project will have no significant impact on the environment, and the action is considered to be a major project pursuant to 6 NY CRR 645-5.3, and public notice has been published and distributed consistent with the regulations, and the applicant has demonstrated that the facility and activity comply with the Class A marina requirements of 6 NY CRR 646-1.2B. And whereas the commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, will not have an undue visual, cultural, or audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore, we resolve the Lake George Park Commission hereby approves the above application as proposed.
Motion's made.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing no nays, it's passed. Thank you, everybody. Item 10, Law Enforcement Committee report. We did have a Law Enforcement Committee.
We did, and it met this morning before the Park Commission's monthly meeting, and Lieutenant Joe Johns gave a really nice report on, we'll start with equipment. All boats are now in the water, and on one of the pontoon boats, a new deck was installed, and there was some wire corrosion on one of the boats, and it's all fixed now. And the new docks on Green Island, where we keep our boats, are really working very well, and they're complete. And it should be noted that I think I said all boats are in the water. And the Marine Patrol began daily operations on May 1st. And our boater education class has started, and one was completed in May. 13 out of 15 people showed up and passed. And Joe's tentatively scheduling another class at the end of June, maybe June 20th, and then in July there will be one in Bolton Landing. And Memorial Day recap, as we all know, the weather took a toll on everybody. It was pretty quiet. Nothing except one jet skier did not have a certificate to drive it, and he was speeding, so they took care of him. Yeah. And we have a new patrol boat that's going to be coming soon, and it'll be delivered by the end of the second week of July. And we had an extensive discussion on fuel and the cost of fuel, which, as we know, is pretty high now. But Joe and Justin, they've been working really well, and it looks like we're going to be able to get nothing like last year, but they're doing very well to get the best price possible. So that was it.
Is that a motion?
And I'll make a motion to accept the, first of all, I should I need to read the resolution to accept it, don't I?
Yes.
Okay. It's been a couple of months, I kind of forgot.
We missed you, Kath.
Resolution
You'll all come back, Kath.
2026-21, meeting 554 on May 26th, the acceptance of the law enforcement report, whereas the Law Enforcement Committee met today, May 26th, to review matters pertaining to the Lake George Park Commission's Marine Patrol and the Commission's law enforcement program, and whereas active law enforcement cases and their status were reviewed in executive, well, we didn't really have an executive session.
You don't have to read that part.
So I don't need to read that part, right. Whereas the Law Enforcement Committee has reported on the results of that committee meeting at this full commission meeting, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee recommends acceptance of this month's enforcement report, I'll make a motion that this be accepted.
Second.
Motion made, motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
No nays? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Almost finally, public comments. Anyone here that hasn't had the opportunity?
Real quick, John McDonald again. On behalf of the Lake George Steamboat Company, I'd like to thank the Park Commission for your support in that 5-mile-an-hour range over the past couple summers. To your point, Kathy, there are a lot of people there who aren't licensed boaters, and as someone who's been the captain of the Minnehaha for a long time, they don't understand how far away they need to be from these vessels. So we really appreciate the support that you've given us over the last couple summers. So thank you.
Thank you.
We're calling those patrols our downtown patrol. So, thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Waterkeeper.
Good morning. Chris Nowitzki, Lake George Waterkeeper. Last time I was here, I provided an update on the town of Putnam, where the town board was considering disbanding their planning board and their site plan review law. With the public involvement and unanimous outcry, the town board did not do that the last prior meeting and decided to keep the planning board until their meeting a couple of weeks ago, where without an announced resolution, they disbanded their planning board. So wanted to update the commission on that and a request, understanding that now the town board will be the reviewer of site plan applications. I'm not asking the commission to go any further than they legally can, but just to be aware of that and maybe pay a little more attention, because you now have an uneducated board not aware of the site plan review process or possibly park commission regulations and jurisdiction. So we just don't want any gaps, and I know you don't either. So just an update. So thank you for your job and your due diligence. So.
You know, on what Chris is saying, I think I should let everybody know here that the town of Dresden doesn't even have a town board as we speak.
Yeah.
So.
Can't make it up.
No.
North Country governing.
You rule the road,
No, my sister does.
I hereby appoint Kathy as mayor of Dresden.
We had a
That's
couple
okay.
suggested people.
My sister already is.
Okay,
There
we'll make you deputy mayor, Kath, under the powers
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
permitted to me here by my local council. Thanks. Any other public comments?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn is made. We're not even voting on it.
Yes, you
Done.
are.
Okay, all in favor?
You don't got any name.
We're here. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and we're glad you know more about septic systems than you ever thought you'd know.